All right, perfect. We are online. So good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Asheville Museum of Science Ask a Scientist series. My name is Abby, and this morning I have with me Drew Myers, who is an undergraduate biology student at Radford University. Her research is looking into how cognitive tests can stress out animals, just like they can human beings, by using hormonal and behavioral data. So she and her lab uses zebra finch to answer some of the questions that they have. And Drew's passion for animals extends well beyond her work in the lab, and she's actually on a path to start at the Virginia Maryland College of Veterinary Medicine next year. So that's very exciting for her. And everyone just sit back, send in your questions, and get ready to hear A Flock of Bird Brains, Cognition Testing with Zebrafish with Drew Myers.
Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen here. And, okay, so as she said, my name is Drew Myers, and I'm a senior biology major at Radford University. And for the last few years, I have had the opportunity to work under the mentorship of Dr. Jason Davis in the ecophysiology lab. And I've been able to work with zebra finches and study stress with them. And this is actually going into my capstone project, which is a part of the Radford University Honors College. And it's just accumulation of research and then a presentation of it at the end. And so I'm actually very excited to show this with you guys. Let me see. I haven't done this before. Oh, there we go. Okay, so first of all, have you ever been so stressed out by a test that you made yourself sick? I multiple times have been super stressed out when I've taken a test. It's just been like, what do I do? Am I going to remember what I studied? So let's talk about that. First of all, what is stress? So as you can imagine, this antelope is probably experiencing a lot of stress. Its heart is beating fast. Its muscles are working as hard as they can to get away from that lioness. But why? So when this antelope first perceived the lioness, its eyes and ears sent a signal to its brain, and then the brain goes and thinks about this for a very short amount of time, and then perceives danger. And then it sends a signal to another part of the brain, which sends a signal to the nervous system, which then releases hormones that, like adrenaline, that send signals out to the body for the muscles to start working really fast, the heart to start beating. So it is a physiological response in an attempt to keep this antelope alive. But what happens if we have an intellectual stressor? So a test, a pop quiz. What happens then? That's what I'm looking at, but not only in humans. So I've talked about how stress and hormones are related. You have a stressor, and then hormones are released in relation to that. So like adrenaline, we all know that one. And then cort. So humans have cortisol, and then I study corticosterone in birds. But stress and health are also linked. So imagine that antelope that we talked about before. Imagine it had a meal, like a really big meal before it saw that lioness. It ate a bunch of grass, and then its energy was going into its digestive system to try and deal with that food, get energy from it. But then it saw that lioness, and its brain said, no, stress, get away, quick, danger, ah. And so its energy was then taken into its muscles. So it was a reallocation of energy. It took the energy away from digesting and put it into running. So if this happens and the stressor doesn't stop, so that let's say that lioness could run forever. If she keeps on running and chasing that antelope's energy is going to keep on going to its muscles, and it's not going to go to digesting that food and helping it. So if you have stress that happens over a long period of time, the energy won't go back to self-care. It won't go to immune responses. It'll just go to getting away from the stress, just getting rid of it. You don't want to be stressed. So you can imagine that would be a detriment to health. And stress and social behavior are also linked. Oh, that one was health. So you have learning, which is different. But first of all, let's talk about siblings. So I have an older sister, and she may or may not be watching this right now, but we've been in our fair share of fights, and that obviously brings up stress. So sociality, being with other people or other animals, in animals' cases, can bring up stress. But my sister also has lovingly helped me with homework before, and that has lowered my stress. So I was no longer stressed about the homework, and that was great. So sociality lowered my stress, which is kind of weird, that sociality can both increase and decrease stress. But also, how does learning tie into all of this? So you have stress, and it can affect your learning. So if you're stressed out about a test, maybe you're not going to remember as much. And that's not very great. But then you have sociality. So let's say you're allowed to take this test with a group. And so sociality then decreases your stress and then increases your learning. So you will remember more because you're less stressed out, at least. That's what I think. And that's what I think will happen with my zebra finches. So my general hypothesis when going into my research was that problem-solving tasks, so a little test for these zebra finches, would cause them to have stress, and then would then cause a reallocation of energy. So that's, again, with the antelope that we talked about, eating a big meal and then running away from the lioness. Its energy was taken away from food and then going into running away. So I believe that this would cause increased stress hormones, which is the things that cause the increased heart rate, the muscles moving a whole bunch. And then also impaired health, because this goes back to the health aspect, that your body isn't paying attention to self-care and stuff like that. It's paying attention to the stress. So health will go down. I also believe that task performance will stay constant with individuals, but be different by sex. So smart birds are going to stay smart, and different types, or the males and the females may be different. And then also that physiological makers of stress will decrease and performance increase with a social partner. So in general terms, if you have a friend there, it's going to be a lot less stressful. So let's think about this. It's Christmas time. You get a lot of packages during Christmas time, but say you get a package and you have no idea how you got that. You didn't order it, but it has your name on it and nothing else. You have no idea what is in this package. Would you open it? I wouldn't. I have no idea what's in that package. But that increases your stress. You're probably stressed out that package is on your porch and you're just like, I don't know what that is. But what would happen if you had a friend there? Your friend would make it a little bit less stressful because you have you have two minds to go at this problem. Like, you can both think about the package. Would it also make it easier if your friend a week back had gotten the exact same package, but with their name on it, and they opened it and it had candy inside? It was great. You would probably then open that package and you would have very little stress because your friend would be like, hey, that's probably candy. You should open that. So that's really what I'm looking at in zebra finches. These are my little zebra finches. They are native to Central Australia, Indonesia, and East Timor. It's a lot of places, but mostly Australia. And they have also become a symbol with the pet industry. So if you go into like PetSmart or something, you're probably going to see these little guys in one of the cages. The male here is on the right and the female is on the left. And that is actually my hand, so you can see how tiny they are. They're just itty bitty birds, but they're really smart and they are very social. Here's them in the wild. They really like living in big groups and they like having lots of friends there. Okay, so what do I do with these zebra finches? So first of all, I take baseline blood work. I take a zebra finch out of their cage, and within 3 minutes, I take a little bit of blood from them. I don't take a lot, and it's actually from their wing. It's kind of similar to a shot almost. It's very small. I don't take a lot of blood because they're small. And so this is just me being able to see how much stress they have in a normal day. So what kind of stress that they have, like they could have stress over just fighting with the same different zebra finch in their cage, but I need to know that that is a baseline of stress. And then I test them. So I give them little tests like this. It's made out of Legos and a piece of tarp. It's really simple, but there's food in the middle of there. And so what I wanted them to do was look at it and then go under the tarp to get the food. Well, I didn't really care if they did it. I just wanted to see how stressed they got. But this is what I thought they would do. Was just go under there, eat the food, because it's food and they like it. They also had a period of time before this that I did not give them food, so they were hungry. And it was just kind of like you skipped breakfast. Like I didn't make them not have food for a long period of time. It was more just skip a meal and then eat this. But I also had a lot of birds do this and not really understand what was happening. They were nervous, they were scared, because they have never seen this before. And some of these birds are young, but some of them have lived for a few years and they've never seen anything like this and they are nervous about it. And then I also had pairs of birds. So I did 16 individual birds, 8 males, 8 females. And then I did 8 pairs of birds, which was me looking at the sociality aspect. Would it be easier for them when they were in pairs? And this is what I thought would happen, was one bird would figure it out, and then the next one would, because they saw the other bird figure it out. But that's not always what I saw. And I'll get back to that in a minute. But then after that, I take blood. So after an hour of them looking at that test, trying to solve it, I take a video of them actually while they're doing it so that I can see their behavior. But after that, I take another sample of blood. So that is to see their stress levels based on the test. And I am looking at osteocalcin, corticosterone, and testosterone. So corticosterone is a simple one. It's what a lot of people use. It's a really good indicator of stress in birds. Osteocalcin is a little bit newer. People haven't looked at it a whole bunch, and we thought it would be cool to look at. And then testosterone is something that people are pretty familiar with. We all have it. And we were going to look at that as a symbol of boldness. So does testosterone make them more willing to solve this because they're not as scared or a little bit more bold? So after that, I had to analyze all of this. But let's look at what I've done so far. So these 2 pictures are, well, the one on the left is my initial blood work. So in every single one of those vials is plasma, which I spun the blood that I got from them, and that is the picture on the right. So the lighter color is plasma, and that is what holds all of the stress hormones that I wanted to test. And then the bottom is their blood cells, which I didn't really care about that right now. The plasma is really what I needed. And then I tested the birds. So I have had birds do, let's look at this. So that male, you can't really see him, but there is a little arrow pointing to him. He's just watching his female solve the test. He did not solve it. The female did, he didn't. I think he was scared, but I have no idea. I was actually interested by this because I thought that he would solve it once she did, but he ended up not. And then I've also had birds just sit there. This female, the arrow is pointing to her, she did not move for a whole entire hour. She just sat there, didn't even really pay attention to the test. I'm interested to see how her stress levels are because I have a feeling that they're really high. And then this bird was actually the first one to solve my test. She is a young female, and I call her Jubilee. She's very pretty. But she was the first one to solve it, and she just got under there and quickly got the food. But something I didn't expect was this. So I'm going to show you one of my videos, and this is what this female did. So that was me setting up the thing, and it looks really quick because it's just a whole bunch of pictures. It's one every single second that she was in that cage. So she was looking at it a whole bunch, and she actually ended up, sitting on top of the plastic. I did not expect them to do that. I didn't think about it, but a lot of them ended up doing that. And she did it, I think, a total of 8 times. She touched it and sat on it, but she never actually solved the test. She just looked at it, sat on it, but never actually got to the food, which I thought was really interesting. And I'm interested in what her stress levels will look like. But it goes on, and that's pretty much just it. Oh, wow. Don't know how to do this. There we go. Okay, so this is actually what I did yesterday. So I started analysis of all of my plasma samples. So this is an ELISA assay, and what that boils down to is looking at stress hormones based on color. So this is what it looked like before I washed it. It's just a whole bunch of plasma in all of these little tubes. So each one of those tubes is one bird's plasma, and some of them are initial blood and the others are tested. And when we looked at this, it actually turned out really well. And we did an initial statistical analysis, and it turns out that they are stressed out by this test. It's statistically significant that they are stressed out by it. And that's really exciting. And we're going to end up doing a few more statistical analysis of it to see what else is happening, and also in conjunction with their behavior. So what I think will happen overall is that individual birds will have more stress and that they would have slower or no completion, which it's kind of equal now. I'm still looking at all of those numbers. And then the paired birds would have less stress and faster completion. Again, I'm still trying to time this out, and we'll actually end up doing that later today. So why do I even care about all of this? What even is the point of this research? So for humans, I think that this research is actually a really good mirror into how people experience stress during work and school. Since zebra finches are intelligent and social, they're a really good mirror to people because we're intelligent and we're also highly social. We like being around other people. If we're alone, it's not a good thing. But what I'm more interested in is with the non-human animals. Like was said earlier, I am going into vet school next year. And so I enjoy looking at how the social aspects, so how social species can react with stress when they're together. So will it be better for animals that are stressed out to have a buddy or a group of friends to deal with stress? In other words, will service dogs, so they're under stressful situations, they have a job to do 24/7, would it be better if they had a service dog themselves? So do they need a friend in order to do their job to the best of their ability, and also to be healthier? So again, as we talked about with the health aspect, would it be better for animals to have friends, and would they end up being healthier if they had them? And That's about that for the non-human animals. And so what I'm doing in the future. So I plan on talking at the Society of Integrative and Comparative Biology, and that's actually in a few days that I need to turn in that presentation. So this is a really good practice session for me. So I'm doing that as well as this talk, and I'm going to finish my analysis of all of this statistically, look at all of it, the behavior, stuff like that. And then this is also going to be my capstone, as I said earlier. So this will actually be a part of my graduation. It will help me graduate from Radford University. And then I also plan on continuing this, the path of this research into my vet school. So I would love to continue looking at how sociality affects stress and how intellectual tasks affect stress. And I would like to thank the Asheville Museum of Science and also Radford University, Dr. Jason Davis, and my whole entire lab. And then I can take questions now.
Yeah, that was fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I was really surprised by this because I feel like we've heard of crows, for instance, like using tools or solving really difficult puzzles and recognizing faces. Is there a reason that we think these finches are so scared of this task?
So we know that these finches are not quite as smart as crows. Crows are extremely smart, but it's something new. So for you, let's say people, if there's something new in your environment, let's say, again, a test. Let's say that your teacher gave you a test and you've never learned this. You have no idea. They've never taught you anything on it. You'd be stressed too. So I think it's more of a newness thing. So they're having to deal with something that they've never seen before. It is in a cage, which they're used to these cages. They've been in here, and so they're used to it. But it's a thing that they don't understand, and so it's scary.
Yeah. And do you think if you had like a break, say you did this task with these birds and then you took like a week off or something and you reintroduced them to the task, do you think it would be any different or they'd have any memory if they were able to solve it the first time? I guess too, that depends on it.
So I'm actually thinking of doing that in the spring semester. So I want to look at that and see if that box scenario that I talked about, the one where your friend has already seen it. So I want to do that and take a bird that has solved it and put it with a bird that didn't and to see what happens and see if that bird that already solved it can teach the other one. I have tested one bird a second time and he solved it the first time, but the second time he solved it quicker.
Oh.
So he was really fast in solving it and I doubt he's very stressed the second time. I haven't tested his blood yet.
And then Dr. Christensen sent in a question that said, what are your thoughts on introversion in humans and how that might influence the sociality or stress relationship?
I think that's really interesting. I have no idea. I think with the humans, it might be a little bit different because the zebra finches are very much just like looking at the social cues of each other. I think it'd be cool to do this in humans. I think I've been looking at all of the research and stuff like that, and this is kind of new-ish with birds and stuff like that and looking at intellectual stressors. So I think it would be interesting at looking at that in humans, but I don't really know because this is also my research itself is I'm seeing new things that I didn't even think about.
Right. And we have a question from Simon that asks, are similar stress studies being done by other scientists involving any other types of animals, such as primates or maybe octopi? If so, are the cross-discipline comparisons helpful?
So I've seen stress research, but I haven't seen it in intelligence as much. So like with intellectual tasks, I've seen intelligence studies, but I haven't seen it combined with stress. I think it would be really cool actually to do this with octopi because they're smart. That'd be really cool. That's actually a really cool idea, and I hope when I talk with the Society of Integrative and Comparative Biology that maybe someone will have that idea, because that would be so cool.
And James asks, do you think you would see similar results in other intelligent species of birds, such as crows, or do you think finches are unique?
I think we'd probably see very similar stuff. Crows, if I did the exact same test, I would have to make it a lot tougher because crows, first of all, they're much bigger. They're also much stronger. So I wouldn't be surprised if a crow took apart the Legos to get the tarp off instead of trying to get under the tarp. They'd probably think around my problem and do something really weird, because they've been known to open like Coke bottles in order to get a treat inside. Like, they can twist off a top. They're really smart. But I think if there was a different test, it'd probably be very similar.
So yesterday I had a group of students and I told them I was going to talk to you today. And I asked them if they had any questions for you. And I made the mistake of talking to them about, you know, if you're being chased by the predator, you're going to stop digestion. That was one of the same examples I used. And I said, they're going to focus on the way. Well, they also, they asked me, when your birds are stressed, do you get peed or pooped on?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, all the time. When I'm taking blood, often when I put them away, I'm like, oh, thanks. Left me with a little present.
And did the birds, I might have missed this, but did the birds watch you set up the thing in the test in their cage?
So they were in there when I set it up. Okay. So they could see me put up the Legos because I couldn't fit it in there. There's a very small amount of space to slide it in there. But most of the time they were just running away from me. They don't really like me because I take their blood. So they were just flying all around and they weren't really looking at me a whole bunch. Some of them did look, and I am interested in them because they're really cool. But a lot of them were just flying around the top of the cage and not really paying attention. The other birds that I have could not see the other birds complete the task. So that was part of the point, was so in my little setup, the testing cage was over here and the rest of the birds couldn't see it. They were in their individual cages.
Was there any noise or anything going on? Like, do they get like stressed out from outside stimulus, or does that sort of like that baseline that you took in the beginning kind of tell you all you need to know about that? Yeah,
so I use that baseline as a comparison to see how stressed out they normally are in a day. So they could, on the days that I took their baseline blood, they might have been able to hear me outside of their room, but they are in their individual room. And that's blocked off. It's actually pretty thick walls, but I can hear them. So I assume that they can hear me talking, but again, that would be accounted for in the baseline blood. Mm-hmm. But something that's interesting, so that picture of the bird that I showed that was sitting down and not moving at all, she was in a room where there were no other birds. So she was alone. And I think that's going to be really cool to look at because she had no stimulus of the other birds. So she couldn't hear them, their sounds at all. And I think that is partially why she was so stressed out.
Yeah, she's like, I'm alone.
Mm-hmm. Oh, no. And since they're so social, then it was like, I'm alone. I don't like this. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we don't have any more questions coming in, but I am very excited to hear a little bit more about the results of this. Do you have any predictions, I guess, of why maybe that female took the leap before the male in her cage?
So I don't know specifically, but some of these birds are a little bit more bold. And sometimes the females, actually looking at past stuff that our lab has done, sometimes the females are a little bit more active in solving problems, which I think is interesting because of the testosterone boldness factor that I wanted to look at, because the males would have a higher testosterone level than the females. But I think it'll be interesting to see the female versus male comparison too. Mm-hmm. And I have had more females solve the task than males.
And what did you say was the age of the finches again?
So these guys, some of them are like a year, and then I think we have one of them that's like 4, He solved it. He's the oldest male, and he solved it. So I'm also interested in looking at that, but I don't know the exact ages of all of them.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, very good. Thank you so much for spending your morning with us, Drew. And when you get some of those results back in, we would love to hear them if you have time to send them our way.
Of course.
All right, and good luck at SICB. Good luck next year in all your veterinary medicine goals. We are very excited for you.
Thank you.
All right, and Ask a Scientist will not be on this coming week because of Christmas and the following week because of New Year's. So I hope everyone has a great holiday, and we will see everyone next year. Thank you, everyone.